Good evening. Welcome to Midnight Sports Talk, the podcast show of Midnight Sports Today. My name is Brock, and I am both the founder and contributor for Midnight Sports Today. For our first episode, we're going to be talking about the Los Angeles Chargers. And to speak about them and my relationship to them, I'm a Chargers fan. I've been one since I was 8 years old. I believe the year was 2007. It was the year that Chargers went to the AFC Championship and lost to the Patriots. There's been a lot of good times, a lot of bad times, and this season is kind of a microcosm of both. The Chargers start out the season going 4-1 with victories over Washington, Kansas City, Las Vegas, and Cleveland. However, in the next 10 games, they've come out to a measly 4-6 record. The Chargers now sit at 8-7. They're one game out of the playoffs, but all hope is not lost. Though the Chargers' loss to the Texans was quite shocking and disappointing, they're still alive to make the playoffs. And as we all know, Herbert plays well and plays his best in primetime. The situations for which the Chargers can get into the playoffs depends on the result of the Dolphins and Saints game going on this afternoon. In an ideal world, we would like the Dolphins to lose, which would push them to 7-8 and most likely knock them out of playoff contention. But the Saints are starting with Ian Book, the rookie fourth-round pick on Notre Dame, so I'm not expecting much out of them. For the playoffs, the best way for the Chargers to get in is to win out. If they lose to either the Broncos or the Raiders in the next two games, we can most likely kiss the season goodbye. However, if they do win out, they would need a loss from the Ravens in one of their last two remaining games. They play the Rams and the Steelers. Next week, they play the Rams at home, and they also finish at home as well against the Steelers. The next situation that would be helpful to get to the playoffs would be if the Bengals lose out in both of their next two games. Now, they put up over 500 total yards on offense against the Baltimore Ravens, so it might be hard for them to lose both games. However, the Baltimore Ravens secondary has been absolutely decimated since the beginning of the season, and they play the Chiefs and the Browns. So a high-scoring offense with a fantastic defense, and the Browns can run it down your throat. So there's still a lot of possibilities, but the key for the Chargers is for them to win out. Now, for this show, we're going to talk about several different topics revolving around the Chargers. We're going to talk about the remainder of the season, the defense, Mike Williams, who has become a subject of controversy, and we're going to talk about the off season. And with the off season, we're going to talk about the job. We're going to talk about the job that Tom Telesco has done. He's been heavily criticized by a lot of Chargers fans on Twitter, but also supported on some. So we're going to take a deep dive into his body of work. Now, we're going to begin for the remainder of the season. An update with the Denver Broncos that Teddy Bridgewater is still in concussion protocol. We're not sure who's going to be starting, but if I had to put money on it, I'll put Drew Lock. Now, this puts the Chargers in a very fortunate situation when it comes to the quarterback of the Broncos, because Drew Lock hasn't had a lot of success overall against the Chargers. Yes, he does have the wins, but when you talk about actual play, he doesn't necessarily show up. If we look back at last year, he went 1-1. He beat the Chargers at home in Denver and then lost them on the road. At the game that he won at home, the Chargers are up 17, and as we all know, Anthony Lynn and his defensive philosophies and lack of aggressive play calling led the Broncos to come back, where Drew Lock threw a game-tying touchdown on the final play of the game, and then Brandon McManus kicked the game winner with no time left for the PAT. However, the year after that, Drew Lock didn't necessarily play well. The Chargers were able to squeak out a one-possession win. There were some questionable calls and plays here and there. Jerry Jeudy dropped a lot of balls in the second game, if I remember correctly. But moral of the story is the Chargers should be able to stop the air attack. However, the issue with the Chargers, which has been the issue against the Texans and the issue with defense the entire season, is the run game. And they have two phenomenal running backs, as much as it pains me to say. One of them being Melvin Gordon. Melvin Gordon had the potential to be great with the Chargers. That's why the Chargers traded up to go get him. But things didn't pan out initially in his first couple of years. He said to come on in his third year, I believe, of the contract, And then, as we all know, he sat out in the fourth year, really ruining all the progress made in Anthony Lynn's second year in LA. Melvin Gordon held out. He rejected a contract that the Chargers offered, and then he ended up taking less money in Denver. But he's still a very explosive runner, and that's going to be an issue if he's able to reach the secondary. The other running back, Javonte Williams out of North Carolina, he's a rookie. I really liked him a lot. Unfortunately, he wasn't someone the Chargers could have taken because he was gone by the time the Chargers' second-round pick came about, which is kind of fortunate in the fact that we got Asante Samuel Jr., but he is an absolute stud. If you ever want to look at a collegiate game, which really put him on the map in my mind, it's his last season against Miami. They're at the Hard Rock Stadium against the Hurricanes, who are looking to try and win the ACC, and he steamrolls them. He just runs all over them, and that's a team which had 2 first-round edge rushers in Greg Rousseau and Jalen Phillips. So he is another explosive running back. He's had a fair amount of success this season. He's been definitely above average, to say the least. And it sounds like they're going to be trying to run the ball down the Chargers' throat. Now, the Chargers have set themselves up for this by allowing a guy like Rex Burkhead to have over 100 yards rushing and multiple rushing touchdowns. Quite frankly, the front four of the Chargers is abysmal at best, even when Bosa's on the field. That's something that needs to be addressed in the offseason. So the only way I personally see the Chargers being able to win this game is if they're able to get to the running backs before they cross 2 yards past the line of scrimmage, really get them before they're able to break out to that second level, and if Herbert on the offense have a good game. Now, there's been an update on who will be playing, who's not. Austin Eckler has just been removed off the COVID list, but already determined out for the game is Mike Williams, Chris Harris, and Nazir Adderley. So another blow to the defense as well. And of course, losing Mike Williams, that's another weapon that Herbert will not have. Hopefully, Corey Linsley will be able to come back. We'll just have to see as the week progresses, but that's the latest update on that game. If the Chargers are able to beat the Broncos, they face a season finale in Las Vegas against the arch rival Raiders. Now, that will be an interesting game as well, because depending on how Carr plays in his next game, which I believe is against the Colts, we could see possibly a quarterback change. I don't foresee it happening, but there's a lot of people that are very high on Mariota, and a lot of people that are very low on Carr. I believe if Mariota's good to go, he could get a shot. He played very well against the Chargers last year, so we'll just have to see. But that's, again, down the road. This week, it's Denver. Teddy B is in concussion protocol, so we'll just have to see. Now, for the season, Justin Herbert, who just made his first Pro Bowl as the AFC starter, so congratulations to him, has had a phenomenal season. He's thrown for 4,394 passing yards with 33 touchdowns to 14 interceptions. He's had an average 98.7 QBR, and he's also scored 3 rushing touchdowns on the season. If I'm not mistaken, I believe he's also close to breaking the all-time record for rushing yards by a quarterback in a season. We'll just have to see. But moral story is he's the man. However, last game, he did have a pick 6. He was trying to force the ball down the field to try and catch up. But we can't really put that loss on Herbert because he was able to garner enough points and enough possessions and put them in enough good situations for them to pull out the win. The defense, when they need to get a stop, they just couldn't. Some of the criticisms of the game against the Texans include Staley's play calling, the run defense, and the players that were unfortunately missed due to COVID. So first, let's start with the play calling. Joe Lombardi, in my opinion, has been very detrimental to the progress of the offense and to Herbert. When you have an offensive staff with a guy like Eckler and Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, when you have an offensive line like they do, when the Chargers have invested so much money in said O-line, you gotta be aggressive, right? And Herbert has been pretty accurate with the deep ball downfield. If I say so myself, he is the best deep ball passer in the NFL. Mike Williams has the ability to go get it. His one-on-one, his jump ball ability is what he's known for. Josh Palmer has really come onto the scene and has some really nice hands. He has to improve several other aspects of his game, but that will all be in due time. Jaylen Guyton is a speedster, as we saw against the Giants, and we've seen throughout his tenure with the Chargers. And Eckler is phenomenal in the passing game as well as in the run game. The offense, it seems very pedestrian, to say the least. It seems like they're not really ready to truly let Herbert rip it until later on in the game, as we've seen in both Kansas City matchups as well as some other games. They really like to play small ball, which I'm all good with. But to me, when you have a quarterback like Herbert, you gotta let it rip. You gotta humble that defense. You gotta keep them on their toes, and thus opening up the short yardage passing game, the run game, so on and so forth. The rushing game isn't bad, especially since Justin Jackson has really come on, has had some nice runs this year, especially in these last couple games, and then he had the very nice run against New England earlier in the season. He's very shifty. I don't think he's a solution as RB2, and we'll talk about that later. But I just really don't like this offense. There's not much more I can say on that. I just know that when you have a young stud at quarterback, you gotta let him rip it. Whereas another issue against Texans was being too conservative. Now, Staley was criticized heavily after the Kansas City game for not kicking field goals, and that seemed to be all he was doing against the Texans, especially when you've seen that the game wasn't going our way. Now, I'm a big fan of analytics, don't get me wrong. I'm not one of those old school, you don't rely on numbers or anything like that. I love analytics. However, I love analytics in helping you make decisions, but not dictating decisions. And what I mean by that is if we have a high percentage to make this fourth down, okay, let's go for it. If we have a high percentage to have a positive play, if we run the ball instead of pass in this situation, okay, let's do it. However, you also have to have a feel for the game. This game is not dictated by numbers. It's dictated by people, and people who have emotions, who feel pain and anger and aggressiveness, who know when they're 100% and who's not. And analytics cannot take in all those X factors in football. I felt that the game was getting away from us early. Now, I had the Chargers on episode alert coming into this game, especially with the losses that they had on the defensive side of the ball. And they just took a couple field goals early, which I wasn't too upset about. But to me, there was some fourth downs where you were thinking, all right, this is Brandon Staley's alley. He's going to go for it. And he didn't. Maybe the media is getting to him. I don't want to read too much into it, but I think he's really got to look at his philosophy and go back to the basics, go back to being aggressive, because I will take what happened in KC way over what happened in Houston, not in KC, but against KC, against what happened in Houston. The team looked lame and sluggish, and the feeling that they wanted it wasn't there. Whereas when they're aggressive, even when they don't get it, like it's a different feel. So those two things definitely need to be addressed. Hill as a DC, I don't see why you would retain him at this point. The defense has not improved at all against the run. Yeah, they had a spurt of which they were holding teams to lesser yards per game than earlier in the season, but for the most part, the defense has been very suspect. And it all comes down to one person being on that field too, which is Derwin James. He is the surefire tackler. He is the guy that dictates a lot of things and which offenses have the scheme around. Now, there was an article that came, not article, but a tweet that came out that said Derwin James was suited up, ready to go, but was for emergencies only. Now, I don't know what constitutes an emergency to you, but to me, that was an emergency. I didn't understand why he didn't play the second half. I could understand the first, but I did not understand why he didn't play the second half, especially in the fourth quarter after Herbert scored the touchdown on 2-point conversion, especially on that third down, where all we needed was a stop, I believe, 3rd and 2, and we would have gotten the ball back. And I put my money that Herbert would have scored. I understand you try to keep the man healthy, but this is the playoffs. This is how you build a winning mentality. So I would like to hear more about why he didn't put him on the field. Overall, it was just a really, really sad game to watch. I was very frustrated, angry, even after the game, not just because they lost to the Texans, but how they lost, how they were beaten and dominated by a team which had been getting dominated by everybody else. It's tough, and that's going to lead to the next segment, which is the defense. Coming into this game with Joey Bosa and Derwin James being out, they needed someone to step up. So they thought it could be Kenneth Murray, the first round pick from the 2020 draft out of the University of Oklahoma. He led the team in tackles the season before. They tried to put him as an edge rusher, thinking he might become Michael Parsons overnight. I didn't see it happening. It didn't. A lot of people are saying that they want to get rid of Murray. I don't want to get rid of him at all. To me, he is the type of guy you need. He's a surefire tackler. To run a successful 4-3 defense, you need to have a great outside linebacker. If you look at the great 4-3 defenses throughout NFL history, they have a great outside linebacker. Kevin Green with the Steelers, Lawrence Taylor with the Giants, even the top 4-3 defenses of the past 3-4 years had that dude, like Khalil Mack and such. The Chargers don't have that guy. Nwosu is, like I said, has been good, but we don't have that go get it kind of person. I would really like to see the Chargers revert back to a 4-3 because I don't see the piece that they can add in the offseason to really shore up that 3-4 defense. In a perfect situation, as the 4-3 defense, I would have Nwosu and Bosa be my edge rushers. I would have here's a little funny story. I always confuse this guy with Laremy Tunsil. Whenever I talk to my friends about him, I always say Laremy Tunsil. And obviously I know that's wrong. But Linval Joseph. I would put Linval Joseph at the nose, and I would try and bring in a guy to play the T tackle spot next to him. Jared Tiller is just not cutting it. He's too small. If he wants to get to a second contract, he needs to put on a lot of weight and become a lot stronger in the offseason. He's just getting bullied off the line. He's allowing too much penetration. And to me, he looks like a draft bust. Fortunately, he wasn't one of our higher first-round picks, but he was a first-round pick. When you draft somebody in the first round, you expect them to be at minimum serviceable, and quite frankly, he hasn't been. He's decent in the pass rush, but it doesn't matter when they're not passing the ball. So definitely Linval Joseph, and then try and get somebody in free agency who I'll talk about more in the offseason. For my three linebackers, I have Murray play the middle. I have Kaiser and Tranquil flanking them. Murray, the surefire tackler, he won't have to be a signal caller because that's Derwin James' responsibility. That's Derwin James's responsibility. Sorry. He's a ball hunter. He knows where it is, how to get it, and how to put a guy on the ground. Kaiser and Drew have been phenomenal. Kaiser especially, he's always shown flashes of greatness. He's really putting it together this year. I like him a lot. So definitely got to have him on the field. And then I'd keep Nas at free safety. Derwin, you can put it strong. And then in run situations, you can always bring Derwin down as a fourth linebacker to go from 4-3 to a 4-4. So there's a lot of different things that you can do with Derwin. You can even bring him down as an edge rusher to make it a 5-3. So again, a lot of different things that you can do with him. For my corners, I like Asante a lot. He just got to grow, definitely get over these concussions. Obviously, you can't get over concussions, but fix elements of his game to maybe avoid head injuries. But he's such a raw talent, and I loved his dad, Mr. Pick Six, Mr. Asante Samuel Sr. Even though he was on the Patriots, and even though he did drop the game-winning interception in the Super Bowl, he was always just a phenomenal player, and I really thought he was going to take his game to the next level when he joined the Eagles. I'm not saying he didn't. I just don't ever remember him going like crazy when he was on the team. However, like I was saying, Asante definitely got key on the field. I like Vato a lot. Probably as a slot quarterback or something like that. Maybe rotate him in. I don't think he's gonna be that guy on the edge. Personally, he is someone on big money, but I think we need to definitely get another solid number one lockdown corner if we're going to switch back to the 4-3 defense. Another thing that we need to fix on defense is who is going to be the Melvin Ingram of the team. Joey Bosa was great when Melvin Ingram was great. They were the best pass rushing tandem in all of football. Now, they brought in Kyle Fackrell, who's been not really on the field. I don't see him that much. Nwosu, who's taking strides, but he hasn't really developed into being that guy just yet. I would like to see the Chargers, if they make a move in the draft or something, to go get an edge rusher. Just Bosa is going to be around for a long time, but if you notice, Nick, his brother, has 15 sacks in the season because that defensive line is stacked with killers. Joey is just him, and when you have a guy like that you can put multiple attention on, he's not going to get the same production that a guy like Nick does, having Eric Armstead and such on that D-line. So that's another thing I like to see them do with the defense, but I'm really not liking this 3-4. I really hope they go to a 4-3. Now, Mike Williams, who has been out for last game and then will be out against Denver. A lot of Chargers Twitter does not want to re-sign him. And I understand why, especially since his second half of the season, especially his last two games, one being out because he's unvaccinated, and then the multiple drop balls against Kansas City, put a sour taste in people's mouths. But in 14 games, he has 64 receptions, 964 yards, and 7 touchdowns. He's going to eclipse 1,000 yards again for the second time in his career. He is a phenomenal option for Herbert. Remember the Cleveland Browns game where he burnt them twice? He catches those deep balls. He's a guy that Herbert can trust, just like Keenan Allen. And one of the issues that I had with the back half of Phillip Rivers' career is he never had a consistent group of receivers. There was always a carousel. The only guys that were on the field constantly was Malcolm Floyd and Antonio Gates. Like, we went to Keenan Allen, we came from Eddie Royal, Vincent Jackson, rest in peace, Eric Parker, so many receivers throughout his time, where Herbert is comfortable with these guys, and that comfortability leads to major development. Look at a guy like Patrick Mahomes. Yes, he has Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill, who both are really excellent. That's doing them a disservice. They're the best in the league at what they do, right? Tyreek is the speedster. Kelce is the sure hands. Kelce, to me, is the second best tight end in the league. I have Kittle ahead of him, but that's no disrespect to the man. He is that guy. But Mahomes also had Sammy Watkins, and we've seen in the beginning of the season how he struggled when Sammy wasn't there. He didn't have that second option when his two main guys was covered up. So having Eckler and having Allen the long-time contracts, I would really like to see Mike Williams be put on a long-time contract. His game is getting better year after year. His abilities are getting better. Not only is he just jump ball Mike anymore, he's showing off his speed, his ability, his route running ability, and I don't know. I maybe I just have a personal affinity to him, but to me, if the Chargers are serious about building a championship roster, he's a guy they have to keep. Now, that's going to lead us into our next segment, which is talking about the offseason and Tom Telesco. A lot of Chargers really wanted Tom Telesco's head on a stick after the Texans game, mainly because of depth, right? And people are saying that though Telesco drafts well early, he doesn't get a lot of depth late. And I would have to agree to that. To an extent. However, he's had a lot of success finding undrafted free agents. He's had a lot of success in the free agent market, and he's basically drafted 3 potential Hall of Famers out of 4 first-round picks. So I don't think it's time to move on from Telesco. I think when the Chargers are fully healthy, they have one of the best rosters in football. It's just all about being healthy. Who knew some of the free agent signings like Bulaga or the trade for Trey Turner, they weren't going to work out? Like that's just comes with the business. But he's made up for that. Storm Norton has proven himself pretty serviceable, but getting in Filer, Lindsley, drafting Rashawn Slater, things like that, I think he's atoned for that, and I'm not ready to give up on him just yet. This is going to be the most amount of money he's ever had to spend coming into this offseason. Obviously, Phillips' contract is fully off the books. Herbert is on his rookie deal. A lot of these guys are on young rookie deals, or there's expiring contracts that take the big money off the table. If I was Tom Telesco, here's how I would go about our offseason. Aggressive. Herbert has got 2 years left on his rookie contract before his 5th-year option kicks in. And then, quite frankly, Josh Allen really reset it wasn't Mahomes, in my opinion, that really reset the market per se. It was Josh Allen and Dak Prescott. Mahomes' contract is so wild that no other team is going to replicate it. His 10-year, $500 million. Right? How many teams are going to give 10-year contracts? Not many. Whereas Dak's contract reset the market enough for Buffalo to give Josh Allen 6 years, $250 million, $150 million guaranteed, I believe, something like that. Herbert, to me, is going to get between $250 to $300 million, probably like a 6 or 7 year deal, and around $150 million guaranteed, maybe even $200 million guaranteed, depending on the Chargers. They're going to be all in with him. As much as people like to criticize Dean Spanos for how quote unquote cheap he is, one, he shut out the money recently, giving Bosa on a $100 million deal, Keenan Allen an $80 million deal, making Lindsley the highest paid center in all of football. But when it comes to his quarterbacks, he was shelling out the money for Phillip. And I don't think that's going to be any different with Herbert. So definitely got to be aggressive now. The first thing I'm doing, though, is I'm cutting Brian Bulaga. Unless he wants to come back on a pretty cheap, close to veteran minimum contract, which I don't see that happening, he has just – it's not that he hasn't been worth the money. He hasn't even been on the field enough to prove he hasn't been worth the money. You can't win with guys that are injured. Chargers' best season in Phillips' last several years was when Mike Pouncey was healthy. When he went down, Chargers went down. Can't have that. So Brian Bulaga, you gotta go. There's a lot of money in his contract, so it's gonna be a nice bonus to the cap. Jared Cook, there's no way you can resign him. He literally cost us the game against Kansas City. If he catches that ball and runs into a touchdown at the end of runs it for a touchdown at the end of the first half, Chargers go up by 7 into the locker room. The trajectory of the game changes. He's had too many drop passes this year. I like the person, but the player, it's not happening. Trey McKitty is slowly rising. Donald Parham was definitely rising before he suffered his unfortunate injury. Glad to hear she's doing better. Shout out to Donald Parham. Get well soon. Steve Anderson has taken a step up, kind of in that tight end fullback combo that he's working in. Just too many drops for me to say this guy is worth bringing back. So Jared Cook's got to go. I really hope they find a new DC. Rolando Hill, he's not cutting it anymore. Like I said, I want to go back to the 4-3, but that's beside the point. This is who I would like the Chargers to go after in free agency. Talking earlier, I saw that 4-3 defense and who would be next to Linval Joseph in the 4-3. Akeem Hicks. His name has been mentioned a lot. He possibly was to get traded to the Chargers earlier in the season. That probably would have been smart. But unfortunately, the Chargers don't do midseason trades, not since Chris Chambers. I think I was 9 when Chris Chambers – I'm in my 20s now, and I was 9 when Chris Chambers was traded from Miami to San Diego. So that just shows you how long it's been. Hicks is old, so we can probably offer him a 2-year contract. Big money, but 2 years, so it doesn't overlap to when Herbert gets his extension. He's been an all-pro Pro Bowler in Chicago for a long time, eats up a lot of space, almost Vince Wilfork-like when you talk about body composition, very strong, very fast off the snap. is an excellent pass rusher as well as a run stopper. Would be just a nice piece to add, especially when you line it up next to Bosa. The next person I like to acquire is David Njoku from the Browns. Now, this addresses our tight end position because he has a lot of the same physical features of a guy like Jared Cook. He's big, he's tall, he can block out defenders. He can block, in the run game. He's great at catching passes, excellent ability to leap over defenders. He's shown great breakaway speed, great explosiveness, and he would just be another outlet for Herbert to go to in the pass game. For corner, if Carolina doesn't re-sign him, I think it's time to go after bump and run Gilmore. Stephon Gilmore, though is coming off an injury, he's still that guy. Along with an added pass rush of Bosa and Akeem Hicks, he would be very effective in shutting down the number one receivers in this league. Put him also from a mentor standpoint, imagine how much Asante Samuel's going to learn from a guy like Stephon Gilmore, who's a former NFL Defensive Player of the Year, who helped the Patriots win a Super Bowl against the Rams, right? And one of the most explosive offenses of the modern time. You cannot replace the type of knowledge and type of value a guy like Stephon Gilmore brings to this defense. And the Chargers have a pretty current history of signing quarterbacks. Chris Harris, Casey Hayward when he was on the team. So I don't see why the Chargers would not go for a guy like that if he's on the market. The last one is if he becomes available from the Jets, Braxton Berrios. I'm very high on him. You're going to see in my article that I dropped today why. He's just an excellent option for getting behind coverages. Very Cooper Kupp, very somewhat Devonta Smith like with his route running. He's very explosive. He can turn the corner very well. And when you pair him up alongside guys like Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, he's gonna find the space. There's no other way to put it. A little bit Taylor Gabriel-ish in a sense, and the fact that he's been overlooked for a majority of his career, it just puts an extra chip on his shoulder, and I think he would explode if he came to LA, whether that's for the Chargers or the Rams, and I would really like him to be a Charger. So those are four guys that I would really like the Chargers to go out and get in free agency. Now let's talk about the draft. Now, I'm not going to go through a whole list of guys that the Chargers should get, but there's a couple of names on here that I'd like to bring up. One is who I think the Chargers should go after, which is Kenneth Walker, the running back from Michigan State. The issue for the whole year with the running game is that Eckler gets the ball too much. Therefore, he's not effective on the pass because he can't go out on the perimeter anymore. He wants to have less of the load, let's carry less of the load. Justin Jackson hasn't been consistent. Roundtree hasn't been consistent. Josh Kelly hasn't been consistent. So to me, you bring in a guy like Kenneth Walker, who has proven that he is an absolute phenom at running back, who's proven himself against some of the top defenses in America. To me, there's no better conference. There's no conference with better defenses, unless the SEC, than the Big Ten. He ran all over Michigan. He didn't have that great of a showing against Ohio State, but basically every other team he's had he's played very well against. He knows how to find the end zone. He knows how to get that yard when you need to. He would take a lot of pressure off Eckler. You can keep Justin Jackson around as well. And the fact that running backs have lost value in the draft, especially since after Saquon, you're not going to see a lot of running backs go high anymore. I mean, even look at the top running backs in the NFL coming into the season, right? Which was McCaffrey, who was drafted 8th. But then you have guys like Derrick Henry, who was a second-round pick. And then you have Alvin Kamara, who was drafted pretty late in the round. I'm not sure what pick he was. I'll look that up for us. But running backs are a dime a dozen. However, the Chargers are going to be drafting probably after the 15th overall pick. And if Breece Hall, who's another running back from Iowa State, goes before him, you cannot pass up a guy like that. And that's why I think the Chargers should go after Kenneth Walker. Another guy I really like, but I don't think he's going to be on the board by the time the Chargers draft, is Tyler Lindebob. He's a center from Iowa. Now, I'm sure a lot of you guys are saying center, like we already have a center in Lindsley. True. However, he can play guard. He has great lateral speed. He can get to the second level very well. His pass rush is pretty decent. It's going to improve at guard, being that he doesn't have the responsibilities of a center. And by the way, Alvin Kamara was a third-round pick. He doesn't have the responsibilities of a center. He comes from Iowa, who's had a long history of producing top linemen in the NFL, linemen and tight ends. He's got a great foundation, a great base. He's one of the highest rated interior linemen in all of college football. And that's just another tool to protect Herbert. If he's there and Kenneth Walker is there, I'd have to lean towards Lindebob. Even though as much as I love Walker and how much of an asset and how fun it would be to watch him, it's all about protecting the crown jewel, which is Justin Herbert. And if a guy's there, you gotta take him. You can't pass up on a guy like that. Coming to the second round, I like Cleo Shakir, wide receiver out of Boise State. Phenomenal hands, smaller. He possesses a lot of traits like Braxton Berrios. Can get behind defenses, very quick off the line, and he's a leader. And just again, another tool for Herbert. And then I've spoken about him before because I'm also a University of Hawaii football fan. Calvin Turner Jr. He's probably going to go undrafted, which is a shame because he is, as I said, electricity personified. He is the only person in FBS history to throw for 1,000 yards, rush for 1,000, and catch 1,000 yards for 1,000 yards. He started out his career at Jacksonville State, I believe. Then he transferred to the University of Hawaii, where he took off during the 2020 season. If you want to look at how good this guy is against the best competition he's faced, I would suggest looking at the 2020 New Mexico Bowl, which, funny enough, took place in Frisco, Texas, because of COVID. It was against Houston. Calvin Turner ran all over them. He's very Tavon Austin, like Cordell Patterson. Like, you can line him up all over the field. He had a phenomenal day on offense, but he also took back a kick return for a touchdown. He has had some issues on kick and punt return, fielding balls, but that can always come in time if you have proper coaching. But for the raw attributes he has, and the Chargers are notorious for picking up talent, undrafted talent. If he's there, not only because I'm a personal fan of his, because he would be a phenomenal asset to the team, I think Calvin Turner Jr. is a guy you need to pick up. So those are some of my offseason things that I would like to see the Chargers do. Of course, we have 2 games we got to take care of before we get to that point, and hopefully we're busy so we don't have to focus to the offseason then, if you know what I'm saying. But that's what I see in the Chargers right now. If they don't make the playoffs, it would be such a letdown considering the start and how much hype there was in the beginning of the season with the victories and just the close losses. Obviously the Texans lost. It shouldn't have happened, but it did. While I'm talking like against the Cowboys, that would hurt. And then obviously the second KC game. To me, the Chargers lost that game more than KC won that game. Something about that KC game, which I haven't heard of, but Staley likes to go for it a lot and go for 2-point conversions. So they score the touchdown to go up by 8. So to go up by 7, right? And then I believe the score was 20, 22. I forgot what the score was, but they're up by 7, right? And instead of going for 2 to put the game up by 9, they kick the extra point to go up by 8. And then the Chiefs go downfield, score a touchdown, score a 2-point conversion. To me, when you talk about a guy like Mahomes and how fast he can score points, what does it matter if you go up by 8 if you know that he can get the 2-point conversion done? To me, you go for as much as you went for it on 4th down. You have 2 yards to the end zone and one of the best quarterbacks in the league. You go for it, especially since Herbert is really good on 2-point conversion. You get that, you go up by 2 possessions. Then on the next Chargers drive, they score a touchdown anyway. So it would have been they would have had a chance to go by 2 possessions again. That's just something that troubles me a lot about Staley is that of course he's growing into becoming a head coach and no one's going to be able to do it overnight. And in no way am I advocating for him to get fired. I'll make that very clear. I do think he needs to reflect upon the season, which he will, and think about some of the coaching decisions that he's made. Maybe it's just my philosophy, but whenever you have an opportunity to go up by 2 possessions in one play, you got to take it, especially against a team like Kansas City. I just think about that. But yeah, that's what I have so far on the Chargers. Let me know what you think. I love to hear from you guys. You know, when I say that I really want to hear from you, I do. I love engaging with you guys. There's so many cool people on Twitter I've had the opportunity to have conversations with about sports. Sports is my passion. You know, sports and movies. That's what I love to do, to watch, talk about, to write. Um, it is just such a treat and a blessing for me to be able to speak with everybody out there. Even if we disagree on things, I truly enjoy getting the opportunity to talk to you. So that wraps everything up for our first episode. I hope you've enjoyed listening so far. You can catch us tomorrow. I'm gonna bring a good friend of mine on, and we're gonna be talking about the NFL draft. We're gonna go over guys like Tyler Lindebob, Kenneth Walker, Cleo Shakir, Calvin Turner more in detail. We're going to break down the first 10 picks of the draft. It's going to be a lot of fun. So definitely drop some comments about that too. I'm going to be publishing an article tonight. So I hope you guys look forward to that. And like I said, if you have any questions, you can either send to us via Twitter, you can DM us, you can comment on our page. We'll try to respond to you as fast as possible. You can email us at midnightsportstoday@gmail.com. Try to get back to you as soon as possible. And as always, like I said, we just want to hear from you. I would like to put out there that we are an independent blog and we are definitely looking for donations. So if you are interested in donating to the blog and to our podcast, you can do so via Twitter. There should be a tip button at the top. You can donate directly to the Venmo or our GoFundMe website. If you also look on midnightsportstoday.org, you will be able to see our blog, and then also there is a donate button for you to go and hit up our GoFundMe page. And as a bonus for you, if you would like to donate, we'll definitely be sending out a special tweet every month thanking everybody who donated. We'll put your name on there, and so make sure everybody gets acknowledged. And then we're also going to do a prize. So we're going to raffle off everybody that donated. If you donate even $1, that's the minimum. $1, we're going to put your name into a cup or a bucket or a hat. We'll pull one out, and then we're going to contact you, or we'll put an article out of your choice and give you the option to come on the show if you would like. We look forward to hearing from you. If you do want to donate via Venmo, just whenever you put, just make sure you put how you want your name to be pronounced or what name you like to be said in the reason or comments. So we make sure to give you credit. And if you donate via GoFundMe, make sure you have your name out and also your Twitter tag or whatever way you like us to contact you. So we make sure we include you. Thank you guys so much for joining me for my first episode. I've had such a great time talking. I hope to hear from you guys soon. Like I've been saying, I know I'm a little bit repetitive, but I want to make sure I get those points in there. And go Bolts. Thank you.